Hallelujah. Shalom, family. Love to the 12 tribes of Yasharal scattered abroad. Welcome. The subject of this video is, what does the Torah teach about the uncleanness of death, dealing with dead bodies? So some points that we're going to go over: water of cleansing. What do we do in diaspora, in exile from our homeland? The high priest, vows, moedim or appointed times, soldiers in warfare, unclean deeds and unclean spirits. And then at the end, we'll have a quiz. Water of cleansing. Bamidbar, or Numbers chapter 19. And Yahuwah spoke unto Moshe and unto Aharon, saying, This is the ordinance of the law which Yahuwah has commanded, saying, Speak unto the children of Yasharal, that they bring you a red heifer without spot, wherein is no blemish, and upon which never came yoke. And you shall give her to Eleazar the priest, that he may bring her forth without the camp, and one shall slay her before his face. And Eleazar the priest shall take of her blood with his finger, and sprinkle of her blood directly before the tabernacle of the congregation 7 times. And one shall burn the heifer in his sight, her skin and her flesh and her blood with her dung shall he burn. And the priest shall take cedar wood and hyssop and scarlet, and cast it into the midst of the burning of the heifer. Then the priest shall wash his clothes, and he shall bathe his flesh in water. And afterward he shall come into the camp, and the priest shall be unclean until even. And he that burns her shall wash his clothes with water, and bathe his flesh in water, and shall be unclean until the even. And a man that is clean shall gather up the ashes of the heifer, and lay them up without the camp in a clean place. And it shall be kept for the congregation of the children of Yasharal, for a water of separation. It is a purification for sin. So all this process is involving taking this red heifer, this red cow, burning it and taking its ashes. And the ashes of this red cow is to be used to produce this water of separation or water of purification. And he that gathers the ashes of the heifer shall wash his clothes and be unclean until the even. And it shall be unto the children of Yasharal and unto the stranger that sojourns among them for a statute forever. So this is an everlasting statute. This is not something that is done away with. This is not something that was changed by Yahushua HaMashiach. Even though we don't have a practicing priesthood right now, and we don't have a temple right now, those things are being suspended in this time of favor or grace. But when Yahushua returns and reestablishes the Levitical priesthood, and there's a temple, these things will continue to be practiced. So what is the water of separation, the water of purification? What is it used for? He that touches the dead body of any man shall be unclean 7 days. He shall purify himself with it on the 3rd day, and on the 7th day he shall be clean. But if he purify not himself the 3rd day, then the 7th day he shall not be clean. So this is used for a person that has touched a dead body, the dead body of a man. They use the ashes, put it in the water, and they produce this water of purification. And the person who touches the dead body is unclean for 7 days. The 3rd day of his uncleanness, he's supposed to wash himself with this water that has been mixed with the ashes of the red cow. Whosoever touches the dead body of any man that is dead, and purifies not himself, defiles the tabernacle of Yahuwah, and that soul shall be cut off from Yasharal, because the water of separation was not sprinkled upon him. He shall be unclean. His uncleanness is yet upon him. This is the law. When a man dies in a tent, all that come into the tent and all that is in the tent shall be unclean 7 days. And every open vessel which has no covering bound upon it is unclean. So think about this. How do we practice this today? Most of us in our diaspora no longer live in tents. But if a man dies in a house, dies in a hospital, dies in a home, dies in hospice care, that dwelling is unclean for 7 days. And everyone that comes into that dwelling is unclean for 7 days. And whosoever touches one that is slain with a sword in the open fields, or a dead body, or a bone of a man, or a grave, shall be unclean 7 days. So this goes to even going to a cemetery, right? That you go to a grave, you're unclean for 7 days. And for an unclean person, they shall take the ashes of the burnt heifer of purification for sin, and running water shall be put thereto in a vessel. And a clean person shall take hyssop, and dip it in the water, and sprinkle it upon the tent, and upon all the vessels, and upon the persons that were there, and upon him that touched a bone, or one slain, or one dead, or a grave. And the clean person shall sprinkle upon the unclean on the 3rd day, and on the 7th day. And on the 7th day he shall purify himself, and wash his clothes, and bathe himself in water, and shall be clean at even. So this is the whole process. They take the ashes of the red cow and mix it with running water that was taken into a container. And then they take hyssop, and hyssop is a herb, and they take a bunch of hyssop like a brush and sprinkle it on the tent, the vessels, upon the people that were made unclean through being in the vicinity of a dead body. And a person who's unclean through a dead body is to be sprinkled with this water on the 3rd day and on the 7th day. And then after that, he is to do a mikvah, do a baptism, and purify himself and his clothes. And then he becomes clean at the end of the 7th day. But the man that shall be unclean and shall not purify himself, that soul shall be cut off from among the congregation, because he has defiled the sanctuary of Yahuwah. The water of separation has not been sprinkled upon him. He is unclean. So if a person does not perform his duty of cleansing himself from the uncleanness of a dead body, then he is excommunicated. He's not allowed to join in the congregation of Yasharal. He's not allowed to come to convocation. He's not allowed to join the Modim or the feast days. And it shall be a perpetual statute unto them, that he that sprinkles the water of separation shall wash his clothes, and he that touches the water of separation shall be clean unto even. The person who performs the ceremony of sprinkling the unclean person with the water of purification or the water of separation, he has to mikvah, wash his clothes. And whatsoever the unclean person touches shall be unclean, and that soul that touches it shall be unclean until even. So this is a contagious form of uncleanness. So if a person is unclean through touching a dead body, everything that that person touches becomes unclean.
Do me a huge favor and smash the like button. And also consider subscribing. It really helps me to grow the channel. And the more the channel grows, the more we all can spread the word.
So let's talk about what we can do in diaspora since we are exiled and scattered away from our homeland. The temple was destroyed and the Levitical priesthood disbanded. So what do we do now? Do we have to go and create our own water of separation, burn a red cow and collect its ashes? What do we do now? So for an example of what an Israelite in exile would do in this situation, let's look at the book of Tobit, chapter 1. The book of the words of Tobit, son of Tobiel, the son of Ananiel, the son of Aduel, the son of Gabael, of the seed of Asel, of the tribe of Naphtali, who in the time of Emanmeser, king of the Assyrians, was led captive out of Thisbe, which is at the right hand of that city, which is called properly Naphtali in Galilee above Asher. I, Tobit, have walked all the days of my life in the ways of truth and justice, and I did many alms deeds to my brothers and my nation who came with me to Nineveh, into the land of the Assyrians. So Tobit was an Israelite of the tribe of Naphtali, and he went into exile with the house of Yasharal that was taken into exile in Assyria. And in the time of Enemesar, I gave many alms to my brothers, and gave my bread to the hungry, and my clothes to the naked. And if I saw any of my nation dead, or cast about the walls of Nineveh, I buried him. And if the king Sennacherib had slain any, when he was come, and fled from Judea, I buried them privily. For in his wrath he killed many, but the bodies were not found, when they were sought for of the king. And when one of the Ninevites went and complained of me to the king, that I buried them, and hid myself, understanding that I was sought for to be put to death, I withdrew myself for fear. So Tobit, in exile, he witnessed the persecution of the Israelites in exile in Assyria, in the city of Nineveh, that we were being slain in the streets. We were hung on the walls. Not much different than our experience in the diaspora in the Americas. So Tobit risked his life. When he found Israelites that were murdered, he would take their bodies and bury them, giving them a proper burial instead of leaving their bodies to be exposed and abused by the enemies. And because he was doing this, the foreigners ratted him out to the authorities because he was not supposed to be doing this. Chapter 2. So Tobit escapes from Nineveh and then he goes to another city. But he continues to do his good work. And let's see what happens. Now when I was come home again, and my wife Hannah was restored unto me, with my son Tobiahu, in the feast of Shavuot, which is the set-apart feast of the 7 weeks, there was a good dinner prepared me, in the which I sat down to eat. And when I saw abundance of meat, I said to my son, Go and bring what poor man soever you shall find out of our brothers, who is mindful of Yahuwah, and behold, I tarry for you. But he came again and said, Father, one of our nation is strangled, and is cast out in the marketplace. So we have this story that there's getting ready to celebrate Shavuot, the Feast of Weeks. And Tobit sends his son out to invite Israelites that are in the diaspora in the city where they're living to come and join them. But his son comes and reports that he found an Israelite murdered. Then before I had tasted of any meat, I started up and took him up into a room until the going down of the sun. Then I returned and washed myself and ate my meat in heaviness, remembering that prophecy of Amos, as he said, Your feasts shall be turned into mourning, and all your mirth into lamentation. So we see what Tobit did. He gathered the body of the murdered Israelite and put it into an outside room. And then after the sunset, he did a mikvah and he ate his meal. Therefore I wept, and after the going down of the sun, I went and made a grave and buried him. But my neighbors mocked me and said, This man is not yet afraid to be put to death for this matter, who fled away, and yet, behold, he buries the dead again. The same night also I returned from the burial, and slept by the wall of my courtyard, being polluted, and my face was uncovered. So you see that he took the body into a room, and after sunset, he did a mikvah and ate his meal. Then after the next sunset, he took the dead body and buried it. And after he finished burying it, he came back home, but instead of going into his house, he slept outside because he was what? He was polluted by touching the dead body. So what do we do in our diaspora when we don't have access to the waters of separation, the waters of purification? we do a mikvah. We wash with the water that we have, preferably natural running water. And this is what we do in this time of favor, in this time, and that's what favor is, commonly called grace, is that everything that we can't do right now because the service of the temple has been suspended for this period of time, Yah gives us favor. But everything that we can do, we should be doing. So what did Tobit do? He did a mikvah, even though he didn't have access to the waters of separation, the water of purification. He did a mikvah, he did a baptism. He washed his body. So let's look at the duties of the high priest in regards to touching a dead body. Wa'ikra, Leviticus chapter 21. And he that is the high priest among his brothers, upon whose head the anointing oil was poured, and that is consecrated to put on the garments, shall not uncover his head, nor rend his clothes. Neither shall he go into any dead body, nor defile himself for his father or for his mother. Neither shall he go out of the sanctuary, nor profane the sanctuary of his Elohim. For the crown of the anointing oil of his Elohim is upon him. I am Yahuwah. So a Levitical priest that is in the role of the high priest is not allowed to touch a dead body. Let's look at vows in regards to touching a dead body. Bamidbar, Numbers chapter 6. And Yahuwah spoke unto Moshe, saying, Speak unto the children of Yasharal, and say unto them, When either man or woman shall separate themselves to vow a vow of a Nazir, to separate themselves unto Yahuwah, all the days that he separates himself unto Yahuwah, he shall come at no dead body. He shall not make himself unclean for his father, or for his mother, or for his brother, or for his sister when they die, because the consecration of his Elohim is upon his head. All the days of his separation he is set apart unto Yahuwah. And if any man die very suddenly by him, and he has defiled the head of his consecration, then he shall shave his head in the day of his cleansing. On the 7th day shall he shave it. And on the 8th day he shall bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons to the priest to the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. So taking the vow of the Nazir, you're not allowed to touch a dead body. And if it so happens that a dead body comes into your presence, then you have to go through the purification process and shave your head, and then you have to offer an offering for that sin of becoming defiled while under a vow. So think about this. How do we apply this today? We no longer have the Levitical priesthood or the temple for the vow of the Nazir. But if you, for example, are fasting and you commit yourself to fasting for 7 days, and during that 7 days of fasting, you come in contact with a dead body, then that ends your fast. You have to go through the purification process, and after you're clean, then you do your fast. And the priest shall offer the one for a sin offering offering, and the other for a burnt offering, and make an atonement for him, for that he sinned by the dead, and shall set apart his head that same day. And he shall consecrate unto Yahuwah the days of his separation, and shall bring a lamb of the first year for a trespass offering, but the days that were before shall be lost, because his separation was defiled. Let's look at Moedim, or appointed times, in regards to contact with dead bodies. Bamidbar, Numbers chapter 9. And Yahuwah spoke unto Moshe in the wilderness of Sinai, in the first month of the second year, after they were come out of the land of Egypt, saying, Let the children of Yasharal also keep the Pesach at his appointed season. In the 14th day of this month at even, you shall keep it in his appointed season, according to all the rites of it, and according to all the ceremonies thereof shall you keep it. And Moshe spoke unto the children of Yasharal that they should keep the Pesach. And they kept the Pesach on the 14th day of the first month at even in the wilderness of Sinai. According to all that Yahuwah commanded Moshe, so did the children of Yasharal. And there were certain men who were defiled by the dead body of a man, that they could not keep the Pesach on that day. And they came before Moshe and before Aharon on that day. And those men said unto him, We are defiled by the dead body of a man. Wherefore are we kept back, that we may not offer an offering of Yahuwah in his appointed season among the children of Yasharal? And Moshe said unto them, Stand still, and I will hear what Yahuwah will command concerning you. So these Israelites were defiled, they were unclean through touching a dead body. And the Pesach is a sacrifice. It is a sacrifice to Yah. So a person has to be clean to offer a sacrifice to Yah. And Yahuwah spoke unto Moshe, saying, Speak unto the children of Yasharal, saying, If any man of you or of your posterity shall be unclean by reason of a dead body, or be in a journey afar off, yet he shall keep the Pesach unto Yahuwah. The 14th day of the second month at even they shall keep it, and eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. They shall leave none of it unto the morning, nor break any bone of it. According to all the ordinances of the Pesach, they shall keep it. So, in the regulation for the Pesach, if a person is traveling and not able to make it to Jerusalem for the Pesach sacrifice, or if they are unclean and not able to do the Pesach sacrifice, then they are supposed to do it the next month, the second month. So what does this mean for us today? We are not to participate in the Moedim, in set-apart convocations, when we are unclean, especially the uncleanness of a dead body. Now let's look at soldiers and warfare. Bamidbar, Numbers chapter 31. And Yahuwah spoke unto Moshe, saying, Avenge the children of Yasharal of the Midianites. Afterwards shall you be gathered unto your people. And Moshe spoke unto the people, saying, Arm some of yourselves unto the war, and let them go against the Midianites, and avenge Yahuwah of Midian. Of every tribe 1,000, throughout all the tribes of Yasharal, shall you send to the war. And Moshe sent them to the war, 1,000 of every tribe, them and Phinehas the son of Eleazar the priest to the war, with the set-apart instruments and the trumpets to blow in his hand. And they warred against the Midianites, as Yahuwah commanded Moshe, and they slew all the males. And they slew the kings of Midian, beside the rest of them that were slain, namely Ewi and Rechem and Zur and Hur and Reba, 5 kings of Midian. Balaam also the son of Beor they slew with the sword. Verse 19. And do you abide without the camp 7 days. Whosoever has killed any person, and whosoever has touched any slain, purify both yourselves and your captives on the 3rd day and on the 7th day. And purify all your raiment, and all that is made of skins, and all work of goat's hair, and all things made of wood. And Eleazar the priest said unto the men of war which went to the battle, This is the ordinance of the law which Yahuwah commanded Moshe. So again, these men of war that went out and fought and killed the enemy, they have to come back and stay outside the camp for 7 days for their purification. And they're to purify themselves on the 3rd day and on the 7th day. Only the gold and the silver and the brass and the iron and the tin and the lead, everything that may abide the fire, you shall make it go through the fire, and it shall be clean. Nevertheless, it shall be purified with the water of separation, and all that abides not the fire you shall make go through the water. And you shall wash your clothes on the 7th day, and you shall be clean, and afterward you shall come into the camp. So again, the water of separation is used on the 3rd day and on the 7th day. And then at the end of the 7th day, you're to do a mikvah, a baptism, and wash your clothes, and then you're clean after evening. Now let's look at unclean deeds. What are unclean deeds? Disobedience. Haggai chapter 2. In the 24th day of the 9th month, in the 2nd year of Darius, came the word of Yahuwah by Haggai the prophet, saying, Thus says Yahuwah Zebaoth, ask now the priests concerning the law, saying, If one bear set-apart flesh in the skirt of his garment, and with his skirt do touch bread, or pottage, or wine, or oil, or any meat, shall it be set apart? And the priests answered and said, No. Then said Haggai, If one that is unclean by a dead body touch any of these, shall it be unclean? And the priest answered and said, It shall be unclean. Then answered Haggai and said, So is this people, and so is this nation before me, says Yahuwah. And so is every work of their hands, and that which they offer there is unclean. So we see that Yahuwah is complaining about his people, the Israelites, saying that their dishonest work, their rebellion, their disobedience is like the uncleanness of a person that touches a dead body. Matthew chapter 23. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are like unto whited sepulchres, which indeed appear beautiful outward, but are within full of dead men's bones, and of all uncleanness. Even so, you also outwardly appear righteous unto men, but within you are full of hypocrisy and iniquity. So this is Yahushua HaMashiach talking to the leaders of his time, the religious leaders, and comparing their works as the uncleanness of a person who touches a dead body, saying that they are full of hypocrisy. Hypocrisy means acting, pretending, pretense, and iniquity. Iniquity is sin, the transgression of the Torah. So they put on a religious front, but their actions are disobedience and rebellion. Luke chapter 11. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are as graves which appear not, and the men that walk over them are not aware of them. So he's comparing these religious teachers as unmarked graves that you're walking along in a field and you don't know that you're walking over a grave. So you don't know that you are being made unclean. That's what he compares these religious teachers to. Because the people that are learning from them are unaware that these teachers are not teaching them the Torah of Yah, but teaching them man-made doctrines. Let's talk about unclean spirits in regards to dead bodies. Luke chapter 8. And they arrived at the country of the Gadarenes, which is over against Galilee. And when he went forth to land, there met him out of the city a certain man, which had devils long time, and wore no clothes, neither abode in any house, but in the tombs. When he saw Yahushua, he cried out, and fell down before him, and with a loud voice said, What have I to do with you, Yahushua, you son of Elohim Most High? I beseech you, torment me not. So we have the scene of this demon-possessed man. And where was he living? He was living in the cemetery, among the graves. Unclean spirits are attracted to uncleanness. So people that dwell in unclean spaces are subject to being tormented by unclean spirits. That's why it's very important for us as Israelites to understand what makes us unclean. Take, for example, haunted houses. Most haunted houses, so-called, have some kind of story behind them, some kind of legend of some great tragedy, some murder that happened in that house long ago, right? And when that house is not cleansed, is not purified, it becomes a bed for unclean spirits. And again, when the Torah was given by the hand of Moshe, Yah talked about how the Israelites were to keep their camp clean so that the Ruach of Yah would dwell among them and not see any uncleanness among them. And that if any person was unclean, they had to go outside the camp. So uncleanness attracts unclean spirits, Uncleanness also grieves the Ruach HaKodesh, the set-apart spirit. The set-apart spirit does not want to dwell in a place that is unclean. Review questions. How is the water of separation produced? For how many days is the purification process? On which days is a person to be sprinkled with the water of separation? When does a person do mikvah or baptism? What happens if an Israelite fails to purify himself? How can we purify ourselves in diaspora or exile? Did Hamashiach end the law of purification? Drop your answers in the comment section below.
Fear Elohim and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Bind up the testimony, seal the Torah among my disciples. Shalom, family. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to click the subscribe button. Like, comment, and share.